Hi, and welcome back to Mountain Craft Appalachia. It's Father's Day. My family just took me out for dinner, so I got my Sunday best on. This is part 2 video of the vanilla. This is the southern style. So, like the last video, you need beans, a jar, lid. I use a canning jar, gives it the old-timey look. Whiskey or bourbon of your choice. Now, with this, the better the whiskey or bourbon you buy, the better the outcome you have. I find that the cheaper stuff doesn't really give you a good product. So, spend a little bit to get a good thing, because this is your name going out on your homemade product. So, whiskey or bourbon, and that's about it. Again, we use the Madagascar beans, and again, this cost a lot. This is imitation. Imitation doesn't cost much because this is just flavoring. But if you buy real vanilla, it's going to cost you over $6 for a big bottle like this. So, and just on a little side note, during Prohibition, a lot of alcohol companies transferred over into distilling and making vanilla. I found out with my research before I started making this, and I've been making this for about 4 years. And our stuff turns out pretty good, and our friends like it. So, down to business. Like you did the last time, you take the vanilla bean and you hold it an inch from the top and you split the bean. Again, this is to open the bean up and let the alcohol get inside and pull out all the sugars. If you look inside the jar here, that's some of the sugary stuff that comes out of the bean. That's what makes your vanilla. So what you do is you take your vanilla beans after they've been cut and put them in the jar. Make sure that your container is washed out very well and ready to go. Take your whiskey or bourbon of choice, and this happens to be bourbon. You can use store-bought or homemade, and you pour your whiskey or bourbon into the jar with the vanilla beans. Okay. Put your lid on your container, and I really like these mason jars. You can put a little piece of cloth or burlap over this and put a little piece of string on it and put a tag on it, or you can put a label on top. What I do also is when I make a batch, I put the date, and I put either vodka or bourbon or whatever I use as my alcohol base. I put it on here. That way I know how long it's been setting and which type it is. Now, as you can see, this is the regular vanilla we did in the first video. This is the southern style. Note the difference already. What's going to happen is this, the regular vanilla, will turn about that shade of brown. This, my friends, is going to get very dark. I'm talking about like molasses brown, sorghum brown, dark, dark, dark. But like the last video, there's going to be little pieces and stuff in here where the alcohol is extracting the sugars to make the vanilla. So if you see anything floating around, don't worry about it. That's a good thing. That means it's coming out, and that's why every day you take this and you shake it. Now, before you shake it, you always check your lid. Make sure that you break the seal, put it back on, snug it up, because like in the first video, the sugars will get around your lid and your cap, and it'll freeze it up and stick your jar. So Shake it up every day, just like this one. Shake it up every day. Put it in a dark place, dark, cool place. Cellar's good, underneath a sink, anywhere. And let it sit for at least 2 months before you use it. Now this will have a totally different flavor from this. This where the whiskey or the bourbon has been cured or processed with the char process in the barrels, is going to give it kind of an oaky, nutty flavor. That's why this southern style stuff is really good for like barbecue sauces and other types of southern cooking that call for vanilla. Whereas this, I find, is better for your baking. But you can use both. We have used both, and I'll tell you what, my simple little recipe works. It's not hard, and again, you can give it away, and friends will love you for it. Now, once you've had it processed for a couple of months, you can either give it away in the jar, or you can get fancy. You can put it in craft bottles like these, and again, like I said in the first video, you take these with the corks on them, and I like to dip the corked bottles in wax to seal them up. And you can throw a label on it. I have my own label made up. So there's that. Also, if you're at a yard sale, you don't have to use the same bottles. This is an old, I think, a Chanel perfume bottle. This is an old Inkwell bottle. And if you just want to give it to a friend just to see if they like it, give them a small container like this or this, kind of a trial size to see if they like it. And if they like it, then you give them a big bottle. These make great Christmas presents. People will sit down and ask you, oh, how did you do that? Oh, you make your own stuff? That's wonderful. It's makes you a little proud that you know people like your own homemade things. So there's that. Now, when you bottle these things, some people might not understand that they're with the floaties and the sugars and stuff floating around inside. So you might want to strain it. That way it looks like the store-bought stuff. I find that if you find an old coffee pot and you use a couple of coffee filters, that strains it real well. You can do that like that. Or I've even done it this way. You get a mason jar or a bit bigger jar, just as long as your funnel will fit in it, and you put a piece of like cheesecloth in there and strain it that way. The coffee filter will even work too if you don't have cheesecloth. You can just stick the coffee filter in your funnel, and there you go. So there's the different ways to strain it. I think that's it, and I hope you make some. If you make some, let me know how it turns out. Again, 4 to 6 beans at a minimum in the jar. The more vanilla beans you have in the jar, the more vanilla flavor you get. And the stuff with the bourbon and whiskey in it, the longer it sets, the less strong the alcohol gets, because the first 3 to 6 months it'll get a very strong alcohol smell to it. So from Mountain Craft Appalachia, good luck, God bless, and send me some comments. Part 2.